Hey guys, welcome back to Allison Customs Project Car TV. Today I'm messing with Gramp'Stang again, and we're getting the HVAC, the heating and AC system, into the car. I've already gotten started, and I started under the hood, which is about halfway through the instructions, but I have the hood off. I'm working on some wiring and the brakes and all this stuff still. So it just made sense to go ahead and try and finish up some stuff out here so that I could run some codes on the engine. When we first got the car, we were showing a couple different codes on the engine, which I think I'll have cleaned up by now, but we'll see into that. So this video though is about installing classic auto air air conditioning system and heating system. It is a replacement system. You pull all the factory parts out except the factory vents. This was originally a factory air car, which actually makes it a little easier. We have to drill quite a bit fewer holes essentially, but we do have to pull out any of the original factory air system except the dash vents, and that's about it. We're going to reuse the factory controls, the slider controls, but they're going to be turned from cable operated to all electronic. And for now though, what we're doing is getting everything under the hood installed. So yesterday I got the condenser and the dryer installed and started getting some of the hoses in. Today we've got to get the compressor on, which is going to take modifying the compressor bracket a little bit. Not too much, not that big a deal. And then get the hoses run, and then we'll start working on the firewall and the box that comes in from there. Some of you are going to ask why I choose Classic Auto Air. They're not a sponsor, although I'd like to get them as one because I really like their product. But one of the nicest things, one of the easiest things about them is they send you instructions with pictures and descriptions of everything you're going to do, and everything comes in separate bags. So bag D has all the things you're going to need for that part of the instruction manual. A few of the items came in this box, and I had actually two of these boxes, and sometimes there's really very little in them. It'll be a little bit of hardware, some zip ties, a baggie or two, and in this case I had a couple brackets for the condenser. So basically when you get to that part of the instructions, you open up that box or that bag, everything you need for that section of the instructions is in there, and when you're done you can put that bag or that box away or throw it away because it's empty. So it's a very nice, how they bag everything up is very nice. I like working with the guys, they're very knowledgeable. So I call them and say, hey, I've got a 67 Mustang, but it's got what I thought at the time was a mid-90s 5.0 engine in it. It turns out it's an 89 model engine. Doesn't matter because from 88 to 95, I think, the engines and all the brackets, that kind of stuff are the same. But I was basically to say, I need to go back in with what looks like a factory system. So they sent me everything to go under the dash that would fit the 67. They sent me a condenser and a dryer and the hoses that would fit a 67, and then they sent me compressor and the brackets to mount to the modern engine, and then whatever hose that I would need to do the hookup there. So you can go back and forth with them on conversions. You know, hey, you've got I've got one outside, a 66 Impala with a 2003-ish 5.3 liter in it. I call them and tell them what I got, and they send me all the parts to make it work. So that's one of my favorite reasons for working with Classic Auto Air. And they'll email you the instructions ahead of time, so you can already have kind of looked through them before you ever get your kit and start laying out your plan. So for now we're going to go ahead and continue with the install, and I'm going to try and get some overview pictures so you can kind of see what I'm doing, and we'll just kind of cut back every now and then and let you know where we're at, what we've done, and where we're going to what we're going to do next. So the next thing I want to do is get the compressor installed, which means we've got to modify the bracket. So our instructions call for us to drill a 3/8" hole here on the factory bracket. They also show the bracket being mounted behind and drilling from behind, but I don't see any reason to. Anyway, we're going to mark that, get it drilled. I just found a transfer punch that was as close to the hole size as possible, which is 25/64. So it was the largest that would fit through there. It's still bigger than a 3/8. So then we can start drilling this out. Okay, so what I've completed here is I got the condenser and the dryer in, and the hard line that feeds that. Also added the air conditioning compressor, and it looks like right now the factory belt may work for me. I did call and find out the size of the belt they would recommend, which I think is about an inch shorter is all. So play with this one, and then if need be, go get another one. So I've got the two lines that go to the evaporator. Also basically loosely run around. I know basically where I want them, but I've got to get the steering column and the brake booster and master cylinder reinstalled before I finish running those over there. So for my next step, I'm going to put everything over on a table or something and do the bench testing that is recommended. Get that all sorted and tested, and then we'll go from there to installing this in the car. And I think probably get the majority of this installed today. So looks like this is maybe a day and a half job. So anyway, let me move the camera and we'll get started over on the other side. All right, I've got the control system pulled out and washed it off, cleaned it up a little bit. It's the original, so it's still got a little bit of corrosion and stuff left from all the years, but we'll go ahead and part of the process is to convert this to a full electronic system instead of the planned or the factory cable system. controls assembled, and I've got all the wires hooked up for all the different systems. The little ECM that runs it. This is the valve that goes in the heater line to control your heat flow. In the car, we would be hooking up this red lead to the heater control fuse. Out here, we're gonna see if we can't get some power on it for the bench test. And the only wire that's not hooked up right now is this one, which goes to the pressure switch for the compressor control. So not really too worried about that, other than we might watch for voltage on that as we get going. That takes us through all of the steps, except for I haven't turned the power on yet. And then it wants us to insert this calibration key. And this is going to go into our ECM with the LED facing up. And then it gives us a basic start position for all the knobs. So we got off. We want that at full cool, and they want defroster down there. And we can turn power on. We're supposed to move the fan knob to high. And the LED goes on, off, on again. And I got air blowing out of this vent, this hole, this hole, this hole. Move mode knob to dash max. So we're going to take this knob and move it all the way to max. Yeah, it's blowing out over here and a little bit out the floor vent. The LED was going out and back on as we got to each one of the positions. And you'll be able to hear the internal drawers move back and forth until you feel air out of the different outlets. You got floor. And there it's changing again as it's going through its test. And we have defroster, a little bit out the floor and out. And we'll move the calibrations, or the switch to off. Remove the calibration key so I can put this chip away in a safe place. Unplug everything, and then we've got to remove the fresh air vent on the driver's side and put a block off plate there, as well as go ahead and put a hole over the factory location where the blower motor would have been, that will have a location for all of the hoses to move through the firewall. So go ahead and get that done, and then we can work on installing all these parts. All right, so we've now installed everything under the hood except 2 heater hoses that I'm waiting on. Before they get here tomorrow, I'm going to try and get the whole radiator system flushed out. Found a little rust in there, so I don't want to wash any of that into our brand new heater core. Once that's done and we get the heater hoses tomorrow, we'll get that hooked up, and then the under hood side of this process is complete except charging the AC system. On the inside here, I mounted the big AC unit with the condenser and the heater core and all that in it, one we bench tested. That went very simply. The instructions tell you it needs 2 people, and I did it by myself while I was talking on the phone. So it's a lot easier than they make it seem like it's going to be. 2 people would definitely make it quicker, but it probably didn't take me 20 minutes. I also ended up modifying one of the brackets that goes up under the dash to mount to the cowl. There was a bracket already there, so I flipped it over, rebent it a little bit, and bolted it to an existing bracket, which made kept me from poking another hole in the cowl. Other than that, we've got to tie the wiring harness from the classic auto air unit into the car's system, and the car has been rewired at a previous date. So I found that heater core wire, or heater wire, which is a 30 amp circuit, and this only requires a 20 amp circuit, so we've got plenty of juice there. And then we'll install the ductwork and the vents, the outlets. So this is actually going pretty smoothly. I should have it mostly cleared up today, like I said, except for the heater hoses and charging the AC system. So let me get started on some of that, and we'll get back to it. So now you can see that I've got the heater hoses and the heater control valve all installed. So this valve comes with the kit. It's what controls the water flow in and out of your heater core. To hook that up, since everything is pretty tight here, because we have two main lines that come across the top of the engine, hard lines that feed, and then the heater core outlets are on the back. So you've got an inlet and outlet off the back of the motor that are all tied to the water pump and the intake manifold up front. So we're pretty condensed in the amount of area I have here. So I used the factory hoses for a 89 Mustang 5.0, which this is one of them. I ended up buying 4 of these and used 3 or portions of, like for example, this is a portion of this hose and the other side is installed down in here. And what I found was using both this 18705 and whatever the larger one, the 3/4 valve or hose is for the return. What I found was that by cutting them up and using just the pieces I needed, I was able to make curves around everything, including the transmission dipstick, get the valve mounted up onto the firewall, and keep everything looking pretty factory-ish. One of the things I found that helped was all of the ports on the classic auto air system are 5/8, but one of the outlets on the Mustang is 3/4, so hence I needed that 3/4 hose. Well, using something like this where you can go from 3/4 to 5/8 union, this is an aluminum one, I believe it's ICT. I'll put a link to these on Amazon in the comments so that if you're interested in picking some of those up, and you can get them in all different sizes. I also used one in the radiator hose up front to shorten a factory radiator hose down to the size we needed for this car. But anyway, they work really well. You use the 3/4 side on the hose there, and then whatever I needed for the 5/8, and then I was able to just cut up hoses that had the right curves in them to get me around all of the hardware that's in the car. So great little tool trick for making everything fit really well. That's it for the HVAC system install. I've already flushed out the radiator and the engine block and all that before hooking up the heater hoses. That way it wouldn't run any rust or other crud into the new valve and new heater core. With that done, it's been refilled. I've test run the engine, checked for leaks, and it puts out heat pretty quick. It's a really good system. It installs very easily. I would say if you had all your parts in hand and had a pretty good idea how everything was going to go together, you'd be maybe 10 to 12 hours into the project to be complete, ready to put Freon in it. In my case, the manual does tell you exactly how much Freon the system is going to need, but I don't really have a way to vacuum out the system, and I don't like to put Freon in on top of a system where you know there's some air trapped in there. So rather than go through that, the car's got to go to a shop to get an alignment anyway, so while it's there, I'll have them go ahead and vacuum the system, check it for leaks. We make sure we don't have any bad O-rings or anything like that, and then put Freon in it while it's there. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and please like and subscribe. Hit the little bell for notifications. We'll see you again on another Allison Customs Project Car TV this next week.